Hello and welcome to the second Young Folks Music Podcast. This week we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff. Over the past month or so, there's been just this swath of celebrities that have passed on, and starting with Haskell Wexler and Lemmy Kilmister, and then just going through to Maurice White this past week. And the biggest one has been David Bowie. Um, so first off, let's just go around and introduce everybody who's in the podcast. I'm Ryan Gibbs. Start with Matt, and then just go through.
I'm Matt Rice.
I'm Kevin.
Joey.
I'm Joey.
And the new guy?
And I'm William. How are you?
Hi. Alright, so we're going to start this off. Basically, where were you when you heard that Bowie died?
I just woke up and I saw posts from the past 6 hours about it, and I was like, wow, I'm behind. That always happens whenever there's something like that. I'm always asleep.
I was sitting here in my living room, right over there, and I was, just on Facebook on my phone, and I scrolled past it a couple of times, and I thought perhaps it was one of those, hoax things that they always do, and so I looked into it further, and unfortunately, it was true, and I could not believe what I was seeing.
I was awake, and I had just gone through my first listen of Black Star when I was like on Twitter and I saw it come through his official feed. I'm like, either his account got hacked or I'm not going to sleep tonight. And I did not go to sleep that night. Yeah. So, does anybody have a favorite Bowie album or song or something that you went back to after he passed?
Hunky Dory is probably my favorite album by him, but Station to Station is the one I went back to. I love the way that album flows and how funky and R&B like it is. I really love that period of Bowie where he was really taking all these black music influences. Because, yeah, his early stuff was very, very good, but also very, I don't know, glam rock's often not really my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, beyond, the New York Dolls, but, yeah.
I think I mentioned this before. I love Suffragette City. That song is just, off the wall craziness. I love it. And that was the one that I kept going back to. That chorus is just so darn good, The time signature especially, just like it's off kilter, it's weird, it's very glam rock, and I like glam rock. You mentioned the Dolls earlier. I love the New York Dolls.
Yeah, Suffragette City was a really important one for me early on. These days, my favorite songs are Sound and Vision, and I love Heroes, and of course, I love his work on Transformer, the Lou Reed album.
Yeah, Reed, that's another one that we lost too early, man.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big one for me. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, the night that he went, unrelated, totally unrelated. So he went at 2 in the morning, or we learned that, and at 8 o'clock I start listening to The Man Who Sold the World and start listening to most of his stretch through Station to Station. Then I went to bed and I stayed up for some reason talking about, debates in the primaries and stuff, and then somebody tells me, oh, David Bowie died. And I was like, what? So that stretch is definitely what I associate with him mostly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was so surreal, too, just because if you follow a lot of music critics on Facebook and Twitter, that was the week of Bowie already. A new album, his birthday, and then all of a sudden he dies, and it's just was it felt like it was wrong just because I've never seen something like that where you're already talking about somebody and then they die and it's completely unrelated to what you were talking about in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps that was the Grand Master plan.
Apparently, from what we've heard, that's what he was going with Black Star. TYF did not run a review of Black Star. I forgot who was going to do it, and then everything kind of changed. Everything about the album changed after he died. We learned about what the album was intended to be. What did everybody think of Black Star?
I haven't heard it.
It's not my thing. That's all I can say about it, really.
I like that it's actually enough of a change up to not feel kind of. The next day is, I don't know, it feels like he was trying to break out of something, but he couldn't break back into it at the same time. And I feel like Black Star at least goes crazy enough to sort of be like, oh, he might be back and he might be serious.
I think that it was transcendental enough for a finale. I think it was a good summation of, hey, I'm done. This is my last thing. I'm going out with this. It's not the best of his albums, but I think it's good enough for a finale that, and being now that it is his finale, it's all the more haunting when you listen to it. It just has that whole vibe to it.
I mentioned when the next day came out that was his best album since Let's Dance. Everybody says that about every new Bowie album, but I was really convinced with the next day being his best album since Let's Dance. Black Star is David Bowie's best album since Heroes. As much as I like Lodger and Scary Monsters, this is his best album since Heroes. It's terrific.
Lodger's my favorite of the Berlin trilogy, so I don't know if I'd go that far, but I mean.
Well, you know I'm a big Adrian Belew and Robert Fripp fan, so I mean, for me to say that this album is better than an album that has Adrian Belew and another one that has Robert Fripp on it has to mean something to me, you know?
Mm-hmm. The saxophones on the album remind me of no wave music a little.
I like the saxophones a lot.
Yeah, I'm like. The main thing is that it's. I keep using this word to describe it, proggy. And yeah, it's like I can appreciate the merit and I understand why people like it, but it's just an album that sounds like it was tailor-made to not appeal to my taste, which isn't a problem because I mean not everything's made for you.
I didn't get a prog feeling from it. I like with the 10-minute songs and the jazz feel. I kind of got more of a Scott Walker vibe out of Black Star.
Oh, don't say that. I saw somebody say that, so yeah, there's probably merit to that.
Bowie also really loved Scott Walker. He was one of his
That's
favorite
true.
musicians. The other thing is that, Kevin, you weren't a big Bowie fan, and I gave you this Spotify playlist of basically the essential David Bowie hits and album cuts. What did you think of when you were going through that?
Honestly, I was blown that I pretty much lied to you and said I pretty much wasn't a Bowie fan, because I remember a good amount of these songs from movies, and I remember liking the hell out of those songs, and I just could never put two and two together because at that point, I never really looked up, who song this. I just thought it worked well with the movie, so I just played along. And after listening to that playlist, man, mind blown.
Rebel Rebel was a song that I had no idea was Bowie until one day I looked it up, and I'm like, that riff is, eternal.
It's dope.
You're gonna hate for saying it. I actually didn't know Changes was Bowie, and I've heard that song for years.
And yeah, I give you this whole thing, and I mean, I can't remember the first time that I heard David Bowie, but I'm gonna bet that it was on Pop-Up Video when they had the video for China Girl, which is not even the best single off of Let's Dance, but I'm gonna bet you that's how I found out about David Bowie, was through my childhood of just sitting in front of the TV watching VH1 and those those Let's Dance singles. They kind of permeated on VH1 up through like the mid '90s because they had nothing else to show.
That might be a good way to go. When was the first time everyone heard that? That might be a good place to take this.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll start then. My mom had the 7-inch for Rebel Rebel, and she played it in the house when we were cleaning, and she played it very loudly. And I'm like, "What is this, Mom?" And she's like, "Oh, you don't know anything about this. Let me sit you down here, kid." And my mom is like one of the hugest people that introduced me to all like the best stuff. Like she introduced me to Fleetwood Mac. She introduced me to all of these great bands that she liked, and that was one of them was like Bowie from that era. And Rebel Rebel was the first song I heard, and it's still a great song, even right now.
The thing I love about Rebel Rebel is that Bowie is one of those musicians that is so tied to different guitarists, and was somebody that was so well known for finding these great guitarists. And Rebel Rebel was a guitarist that he played, and he came up with. And did you have the single, the U.S. single edit, or the actual album version on the single?
I have no idea. I was 7 years old.
Because that's a whole other discussion, is whether or not that single version, that American version, is better than the album version. I know Chris O'Leary from Pushing Ahead of the Dame, the essential tome on Bowie's discography, really liked that single edit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Joey and Matt, when was the first time that you guys had heard of David Bowie?
I have no conscious memory of the first time. He's sort of always been in and out there, and at some point that I don't remember, I was like, "Oh, this is David Bowie. That's what he's like."
Yeah, I don't remember the first time I heard a Bowie song, but the first time I knew something was a Bowie song was probably Heroes, just because that's the highest ranking song on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs, which was basically the beginning of my musical education. And the only version that was in the early days of YouTube, so the only version I could really find of Heroes was the single edit, and I will despise that version forever, just because it drops you right in the middle and it gives you nothing to like guide you through. It's like the second verse is not where to start that song.
No. And the other thing was that a lot of people our age kind of started to know Bowie as like an artist that was still making music with the Trent Reznor remix of "I'm Afraid of Americans." Which is probably his best-known song after Blue Jean in his discography, in terms of like chronologically. That was probably the first time that I knew that David Bowie was like not like this relic of the past and had like stopped making music he was still making music up until 2003 when he had his heart attack. And re-listening through those 90s albums, even the really bad ones have perfectly fine songs on them. It wasn't like other people of his era who, when the 90s hit, they were kind of flustered and didn't know where to go. Specifically talking about people like Paul McCartney, and who kind of hit a wall when the 90s came and were flustered by alternative rock music. Whereas David Bowie, as kind of one of the pioneers of alternative music, fit right in just fine. Outside is one of his best albums after Let's Dance, and he kind of got it more than any of his other contemporaries.
I just remembered one Bowie song I definitely heard before like actually exploring his stuff. Before like I got really into music, I was really into movies, and I was a big David Lynch fan. So one of my first memories of hearing a Bowie song was hearing "I'm Deranged" over the credits of Lost Highway.
Wow.
I can say the other memory I had was Changes in Shrek 2, or Shrek 1, whichever one it was in.
Another thing that a lot of people our age first came into contact with Bowie was
Shrek.
that Shrek movie, yeah.
I like that song a lot.
From the Shrek movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the second one.
A lot of us also got introduced to him from the Labyrinth too.
Oh yeah.
Still haven't seen that.
Are you kidding?
I've never seen Labyrinth.
You need. There was a movie theater around me that was playing it in 70mm, and I badly wanted to go see it, but tax season. Yeah, I came into watching Labyrinth without knowing the critical baggage of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I do really like that movie a lot. I like Bowie's performance in it. I like Jim Henson's direction. I like Jennifer Connelly has a good performance in that movie. And not a lot of stock is put into Bowie's film career, but he had a pretty solid film career too, guys.
Yeah, he did.
The babe with the power.
I'm going to go off on a small tangent here. As far as that goes, Henson had to deal with two really difficult things to work with, children and puppets, and that's why, and like, that movie still came out good, so I think he deserves a huge, like, clap for that, you know, because babies and puppets are, ugh, no.
But Jim Henson made his career working with puppets.
Yeah, but not children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That baby was really small.
What's the difference?
One of them eat, not much.
After Bowie died, did any of you do what I did and just listen to all of his music from Space Oddity through wherever you stopped in a row?
Well, when I first heard he died, all I kept hearing about was Black Star, so I heard the actual song Black Star.
The 10-minute one?
I saw the video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember people were really excited about that video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lazarus too, obviously, was huge because like that had just gotten the music video out.
And not only that, but after he died, Lazarus became his first top 40 single in America since.
It was exactly
Never came out.
number 40.
Yeah, like, and it's interesting to see and look through the Billboard Hot 100 Joel Whitburn books and like look at all the great Bowie classics that never made the top 40. Rebel never made the top 40. Changes never made the top 40. Starman never made the top 40. And Lazarus did.
And Young Americans didn't make it?
Young Americans was his, after Space Oddity, that was his first top 40 single.
Wow.
I think it went Space Oddity, Young Americans, then Fame hit #1, then Golden Years, then Nothing, then Under Pressure and the Let's Dance singles.
Okay. What about Dancing in the Streets?
Dancing in the Street, well, I forget who said it, but it seemed like there was a point in the 80s where Bowie was going through like such an imperial phase, to borrow. Oh, who coined the term imperial? I think it was. I don't want to be on record like getting this wrong, but it was either Simon Reynolds or it was some. Well, there's this, and in that phase, any weird thing that Bowie would do, like Dancing in the Street or his single with the Pat Metheny group, would go top 40, and Dancing in the Street made the top 40. It was like one of the worst singles he ever put out, and that was a hit single. You can find it on his Best Of album.
The video's incredible, though.
It's amazing!
It's so of its time. Oh,
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I bet that people like who ship Mick Jagger and David Bowie like put that video to like other music and then cut it up to make something in love.
There's that like
Fan
shot
fiction.
where it like goes around and like Bowie's like just other Bowie drinkers just like drinking just like shotguns of beer. And it's like, why does that even video?
That's funny. I can't.
But yeah, there's a lot to talk about with Bowie. Definitely his influence and all the writing that came out after he died. There are two really good collections of David Bowie articles that were curated by Annie Zaleski and then again by Ned Raggett that are both really, really good, and you go through all of them. It goes through the stuff about what he meant to the LGBT community, about...
That's so important.
Alfred Soto wrote the best article about that.
Yeah. What was everybody's favorite Bowie article that they read?
Alfred's and Spin was my favorite.
It was really good.
I'm going to go on a controversial one, and I'm going to pick that article that Jess Spilnick did.
Yeah, that one was great, too.
I'm going to go with Rob Sheffield.
Oh, that was great. Rob Sheffield, well, anytime he writes about an artist he, like, absolutely loves, like, I like Sheffield's writing just because you can feel the love. He expresses love of music better than any other writer I can think of. Yeah. So many critics are very intellectual, and he's he's intellectual, but he mixes it with this love that just
He allows himself to geek out about it.
yeah, and it's yeah. If you read Love as a Mixtape, it's just like the love in the title refers to many things, particularly the love that he feels towards the mixtapes.
Maura Johnson had a good article too.
Yeah.
And with the Jess Skolnick article, that touches on a thing that was controversial after Bowie died about
He did great.
Some of the things that he did in the 70s that people put a lot of weight on right after he died, and I think Jess kind of hit the nail on the head with a lot of it. And it was one of the best articles of that week was her take on that and how she's able to, you know, reconcile that stuff. And I thought that was one of the best articles of the week was Jess' article.
The Singles Jukebox also did a really great Bowie retrospect. I loved that.
I mean, it seemed like every writer that we know or was well known put out a Bowie article. And I've never seen that for any other artists. That much content. That was quality content.
I saw it sort of with Lou Reed, to a degree, not to that extent, but still.
But I mean, I didn't even see this kind of outpouring of stuff when Michael Jackson died.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't really following the rock critic community when Michael Jackson died, really, so.
A little too young.
The stuff that was out there was really, really nicely done. I can't really recall off memory right now, like specific articles, but I remember reading a lot of like tributable articles and a lot of like, here's his best stuff and here's why this is his best stuff type of articles for Michael Jackson, and a lot of them they all agree with. There's a certain consensus. What's interesting is with Bowie, there's no consensus as to what is his best and what is his worst.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is. Everybody knows bad.
Consensus with Michael. Some people would choose Off the Wall over Thriller.
I'm one of them.
I choose Bad over Thriller. I go Bad over Thriller though.
Yo, Off the Wall is his best album.
Yeah.
I love Bad. I don't care what anyone says.
And with Bowie, there's definitely. It's a case of everybody has a different David Bowie.
Yeah, it's totally for everyone.
Yeah, for me, I love the R&B stuff he released in the mid to late 70s.
Even if I think three of us might say Gunshot to the Head, Hunky Dory, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's what I would think.
I think Hunky Dory is his most consistent album, but I don't know if it's the one I turn to the most.
Yeah, I remember during my listening session the night before he died, I was like, you know what? I think Ziggy Stardust might be an A album, and I've never acknowledged that before. Yeah.
I used to think. I got
in right before it happened.
I think at one point when I was really a lot younger, I thought Ziggy Stardust was an A+ album. Now I think it's a lot more flawed than that, but I still love like so many of the songs on it.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't isn't that great.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if pinups didn't exist, that the run from The Man Who Sold the World to Let's Dance is one of the best runs of albums that any artist has ever had. Probably up there with Stevie Wonder's run through the 70s, through Creedence Clearwater Revival putting out like 5 great albums in the span of 2 years.
Those albums.
Did Creedence or Stevie put out an album as hit or miss as Young Americans though?
I like Young Americans.
I like it too, but it's like
A lot.
Can you defend that version of Across the Universe though?
Yeah.
Yes.
But like the big, dropping point was, Pinups, which has 2 good songs on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's right between, Aladdin Sane and Diamond Dogs, which are both A albums, and it's just kind of this. You think that Bowie doing all these covers of these bands that either meant something to him or were contemporaries of him would be a good idea, and then he turns in his cover of I Can't Explain, which is probably the worst song in his entire catalog.
It's kind of a weird thing if Guns N' Roses did your exact concept, except way better.
I was actually just listening to Appetite for Destruction just before we started this.
Yeah. But yeah, does anyone else have any last thoughts on Bowie before we move on to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I was trying to do a little fun project where I was comparing what presidential candidates said about David Bowie versus Glenn Frey. It turns out you only have 2 presidential responses to David Bowie. One of them was by Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was like, "Oh, he's great. He's great. You know, he does that thing that he does." And the other is Bernie using Starman whenever he finishes like a speech, like he did that after his Iowa speech. So Bernie's got that going on for him. And then you have Mike Huckabee and who's the other one? Ben Carson tweeting about Glenn Frey and making puns about, not puns, but
God,
little jokes
those were
about.
so bad.
Now you can have that peaceful, easy feeling.
Oh God, what?
That's such a random song too.
I didn't read that.
I think you'd be like, "Bye, Glenn. Take it easy."
Or hey, unfortunately, he just checked into the Hotel California.
Taking a drink.
You know, he performed at my middle school a while ago.
Glenn Frey?
With the Eagles, yeah. Like, did this small little thing. My school paid him some money. Yeah.
Glenn Frey played at a middle school?
Yeah.
What? Why haven't we? Well, I know why we haven't heard this, because the Eagles aren't.
Dude, it was only for like probably 40 minutes. It wasn't too long.
It's still weird, man.
You're acting like this is not like a major thing.
Yeah, man, this is a while ago, man. I was in middle school. Like,
Hey, no big deal. I mean,
Just the Eagles played at my middle school. No big deal.
no big deal.
Speaking, all right, before we go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like I mentioned at the top of this, there were a lot of other deaths that happened over the past month. There was just recently Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire, Lemmy from Motorhead, Paul Katner and Singer Anderson from the Jefferson Airplane. The drummer for the Specials died. The drummer for Motley Crue died. The big one, of course, for our group was Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire. Anyone want to talk a bit about?
Well, Earth, Wind and Fire got me into pretty much their type of like cool, like funkadelic groove. Like I love, like that pretty much like got me into that type of music, and just it also got me into dancing, because Boogie Wonderland is such a great danceable tune. Great production by Maurice White too. His coordination for that was just like spectacular, and like just hearing that, I was like going back to the day and just listening to like pretty much somebody made a 2-hour YouTube like compilation of like all the Earth, Wind and Fire ballads, and I was just like listening to that on repeat. It was just a beautiful thing.
Earth, Wind and Fire had like really good music videos too.
I always wish that I could have listened to more Earth, Wind and Fire, but like when it came to anything funk, I would always listen to the George Clinton Project because, you know,
It was weirder.
it was kind of a step above what I think Earth, Wind and Fire were doing, but Earth, Wind and Fire was still important. They were sort of second tier to that.
Yeah.
I think Earth, Wind, and Fire were just an incredible singles band, and George Clinton made great albums. It's easier to put on like a funkadelic album than an Earth, Wind, and Fire album, but
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I never got into that.
surprisingly,
It might just
Earth,
be they're more organized. You know,
Mhm.
George Clinton's not organized. It's mania, craziness.
Yeah.
It's just like here's 3 songs. Here's an LP. Here's an EP. Listen to these. These are great. They're very organized, very methodical, and he's just craziness, which is also why I like George Clinton.
So to a tenderfoot like me, where should I start, y'all?
Honestly, what you said about them being a good singles band, their greatest hits album is totally a place you could start. I know that's a massive cop-out when you're talking to a bunch of music critics about where you should start,
I mean,
uh,
their
If
80s
you
albums
had
are
to
surprisingly
separate yourself from
good.
that, if you had to
But the
restrict
thing
yourself from that, is there an album that was a benchmark for them?
Raise, probably?
Way
I
of the
like
World?
that one.
I like Way of the World a lot.
Yeah, but like the thing is that they were one of those bands who put out September was a non-album single by Earth, Wind & Fire. That didn't have an album home to it.
Fucking album singles, man. When will we learn?
Probably not with
Rihanna
Kanye.
didn't learn. Kanye didn't learn.
Yo, Kanye's a disappointment, man.
We'll get to that, but
We'll get to that like at the end of this with Kanye not putting his singles on his album. But
Well, he put one of them out.
I mean, I don't know. I think when you're talking about 70s music, singles, very appropriate term, and even nowadays sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there are bands that are a lot singles oriented that I like. That the albums.
It's like there's something very charming about a great single that you don't find in a great song, I think.
True.
Like Azealia Banks' 212 might be the greatest single of all time, and it's like perfect in a way album tracks rarely are.
Yeah, and with Glenn Frey of the Eagles, I kind of got this conflicted thing on Twitter where it was like, you could tell that there were some people that were kind of super ambivalent about the Eagles who just didn't kind of talk about that, and then there were people that were not aware that the Eagles were a major part of their lives and what they cared about music. I know that Glenn Frey was probably the bigger death between him and Bowie to my family.
shit. Is that how you pronounce it?
I have no clue how you pronounce his name.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was like, have I been doing it wrong?
I think it's kind of like Mario and Mario. It's either or.
No, that's Mario. Mario, I don't know what that is.
I've heard people say Mario, and
I've heard Slowbeat call him Mario. But
Gene Siskel called him Mario in the Super Mario Brothers movie review.
He said a lot of things in that review.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Great
mean,
review.
I'm not a big Eagles fan, but that does not disqualify Glenn Frey's death from being this like major, massive thing.
Yeah. There was that article that made the rounds. It was like basically saying just because you don't like their music doesn't mean you have to be a dick about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also, I gotta say, at least Glenn seemed like he was at least an okay guy.
He wasn't Don Henley.
I'm not looking forward to the
God.
death of Don Henley.
Oh, can
Yeah.
we talk about that before we move on to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Your list on Rob Tannenbaum's Facebook page? What the hell was that?
What's
We're gonna
happening?
edit that. We're gonna edit that out. All right. All right. We'll get back to that. What if we left that in? But yeah. And dropped out.
Joey's.
Why? He'll come back eventually. So, let's move on to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
It's like they saw our article and just inducted everyone I said I hated.
Exactly.
Sorry, guys, my feed was going crazy. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, we're probably gonna leave that all in the recording. And everyone.
Was the same thing happening for everyone else?
It kind of did, but it's gonna be interesting to hear this recording. I'm probably gonna leave the video up just so people can like see your face when it happened. But
Like,
yeah, we're on.
Like, Ryan, you were talking and your voice got really slow, and it was sort of like...
Live. Anyway, we are on the subject of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now. We'll get back to the other thing at the end of this. But they inducted Chicago, Cheap Trick, NWA, the Steve Miller Band, and Deep Purple. Thoughts from anyone else about...
What a bunch of jokers.
I'm gonna put NWA before putting in Eric B and Rakim. That's just a travesty.
Oh,
That's
I mean,
the travesty of the
nailed
year.
it.
As a hip hop
Steve
band.
Miller is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now.
Well,
That-
I
I
don't listen
think
to Steve Miller.
Get NWA out of the way before they did other stuff with hip hop.
I mean,
That's
So they're not going
but
to.
the thing it's like they're taking it in order of like the safest picks though. Like who do we have in there? Grandmaster Flash, Run DMC. You have two pioneers, and like NWA who changed the slate. But it's like you got to think
There-
about.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who changed the slate on the East. It's like not really, even in the West too, that aren't represented as much in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
There are just 5 hip-hop artists in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, Public Enemy, and NWA. It's kind of like they just like share it and like they forgot, De La Soul and Eric B. and Rakim and...
Well, I'll say this much. I don't think De La Soul, even though they have a great legacy, I don't think their legacy is as renowned, as outstanding as like NWA is, or even like Slick Rick.
I mean, they released more great albums than NWA.
Well, I mean, NWA released 2 albums, so you do have a
Yeah,
point
they
there.
NWA released one important album,
And then
and
one
yeah.
just trying to get back at Ice Cube, but
Yeah.
no
Here's
gasoline.
another hip hop artist that is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Blondie.
Wow, yeah. Yeah. Oh, man.
Is ABBA in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Who?
ABBA?
Yes, ABBA's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I am the only person in the universe who's happy that ABBA is in the Rock and Roll Hall of
I
Fame.
like
I
ABBA.
love them.
I love ABBA.
I do
you
not.
You
I
don't
love them.
understand. My love for ABBA is like obsessive. I love that band.
My great grandma's from Sweden, so I kind of have to love ABBA.
But,
He's
like-
predispositioned.
But like that's one of those bands that are like in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That people are like kind of confused in the Rock and Roll. I mean, they count. I mean, I don't like that people are really transfixed on the idea that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a Hall of Fame for bands that play guitar music.
Mhm.
When
I-
the rock, when they inducted R&B artists from the first go,
Mhm.
and B.B. King's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Miles Davis is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I usually define rock and roll as anything from the 20th to 21st century that isn't jazz or traditional pop.
I think
Davis is jazz.
I think it's more blues based, and that's why those 2 guys are in there because they play blues based music.
Mhm.
And I mean, but I looked through the
Oh, wait,
4 of us did the nominees thing for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the article on it, and it seemed like they picked the artists that we were all the artists that we were the less thrilled about.
Yeah, because
No,
it's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not the Poptimist Hall of Fame.
well, the Smiths didn't get in. Chic didn't get in. I'm so mad Chic didn't get in. I'm so mad that Janet Jackson didn't get in.
no, I was mad the Smiths didn't get in, man.
This.
I mean,
We all picked the Smiths and Janet Jackson for our thing. I think a lot of us did. I think Cheap Trick got in because of all the music geeks who wanted just one pick of ours in.
I like the idea that they're reading our article and actually choosing based on our ideas.
Well, also the other reason that Chicago I think got in was because Chicago fans are complete psychopaths.
Yes, they
And-
are.
And they completely gamed that completely meaningless fan vote ballot. And I'm really wondering if Chicago got into the Hall of Fame because a bunch of people saw them on the ballot first time. They're like, well, we gotta shut up, you goddamn assholes. Like, keep literally protesting outside of our museum. And like, ugh. Chicago fans are so bad.
It's like the lamest music ever.
I mean,
Yeah.
I like a couple of
What
their
about the
singles.
Eagles?
Well, I mean,
No, sir.
at least the Eagles had a couple Jackson Brown songs.
There are like 2 or 3 good Chicago songs that are completely defined by like Terry Katz's guitar playing.
Mhm.
But I mean, like I said in our article, there's this 2-disc Chicago Greatest Hits album. The first disc is pretty good, not bad. It's not anything I've really listened to, but I like some of the stuff on it. The second disc is some of the worst popular music of the past 50 years. And they're being inducted they're being inducted more on the cool stuff they did for like a couple years than the other stuff, because like you can kind of tell that they're only inducting the original members of the band. So they're like specifically focusing on that era of the group, which is a good idea to do.
I mean, maybe it's just like a metaphor for the city of Chicago. On one side, you have the pizza and the hot dogs, and then on the other side, you have Al Capone.
And the rampant crime. And
yeah.
And the unfortunate Cubs.
Or maybe it's like you're getting on a train, and you go from when you're in Chicago on the first disc, and then an hour later, you're in Cicero.
And then...
I think that's perfect.
And then, who else got in? I mean, arguably, Deep Purple. I mean, we got a comment on our article from someone who was semi-prominent that was super mad that we ragged on Deep Purple. And that
was a Fast and Bulbous guy. I used to read his website all the time.
And I mean,
I was just like, he has time for this.
He commented on ILM too about our article.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, Deep Purple were okay, but I mean, what separates them from the other, like, really solid 70s kind of hard rock bands that aren't in the Hall of Fame? Is it just Smoke on the Water?
Because, man, you just don't get it. You're too young, you don't get it.
I don't hate Deep Purple. I mean, I think Deep Purple and Rock is a good album. I think Deep Purple and Rock is a good album. I think Concerto for Group and Orchestra is a good album, but I mean, it's just, for me, their entire legacy is dominated by 1, Smoke on the Water, 2, guitar fanboys who are in love with Ritchie Blackmore.
I mean, I don't know. I think if you listen to like their run of albums in the early 70s, there is a lot of consistency there, and they're a really good band. But at the same time, there's tons of hard rock bands that are just as good who aren't there.
I would have loved to. I'm probably the only one of us 5 who would have loved to have seen Yes get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's right.
As the website's one prog guy, I mean, I was really like kind of at least happy to see Yes get nominated. Mm-hmm. I have no clue how they would have decided what band members get in. I mean, would this be how Trevor Horn gets into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Instead of as like a producer or like an earth-shattering, what to do with the Buggles or anything like that. He gets in for like one Yes album that I am like one of 3 people in the world who think that that's Yes's best album. I mean, and I mean, I wonder how putting these 5 artists in changes what's going to happen next year.
Doesn't Ice Cube get dibs on nomination next year?
Probably not. They're probably not going to induct Ice Cube.
Not induct, but like, he could be on the ballot for nomination.
This year opens up the possibility of Cheek not getting in again.
Next year, the only like slam dunk artist that's going to get in is Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
I like Pearl Jam, but come on.
I think it's really weird that Green Day is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before literally any other band in Our Band Could Be Your Life by Michael Azerrad. Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic Youth and Replacements, none of them are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That's a crying shame that Sonic Youth aren't in there, man. That's a crying shame.
It's doing the same thing that caused Michael Azerrad to write that book. That he kept seeing these documentaries that jumped right from the Talking Heads and R.E.M. directly to Nirvana and missed everything that was going on in British and American alternative rock music. I mean, the Smiths and the Cure aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Where's Black Flag?
Not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're also in Our Band Could Be Your Life, by the way.
Exactly.
If you haven't read Our Band Could Be Your Life, if anyone's listening and has not read that book, buy it. It is one of the best books on music that has ever been read.
What is it called?
Our Band Could Be Your Life.
I've read bits of that.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure.
Never. You go.
Okay, I feel like when it comes to punk rock, a lot of times they just forget all of that hardcore realm, like the Black Flags, the Minor Threats, those guys, They're like, yeah, those guys were cool, but they were doing something weird. Where's the Brad Brains? Where are those guys? Where are the guys
Not
who
in the
revolutionized?
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
They should be. They changed the game. You know, Ramones are in there. You got Joan Jett in there.
Thing about Minor Threat though is I don't know. I don't feel comfortable about putting a band that made a point of not doing drugs and alcohol into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like
That
you can
changes
put-
the game.
The
That
second
changes
question,
the game.
The second question with Minor Threat is, do you put them in with Fugazi as a double thing? Like how
Yes.
they how they wanted, like, the Faces and the Small Faces are in together. Parliament and Funkadelic are in together. They're probably going to put Joy Division and New Order together, even though that kind of doesn't make sense.
It's the same. It's the same guys without Ian Curtis, so that makes sense.
Well,
Mhm.
Jillian Gilbert's synthesizers are a really important part of the order.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know how they'd handle putting in Minor Threat and Fugazi, especially because there's that like, couple-year swath in between the two of them where Mackay was doing something else.
Yeah. I think Mackay definitely needs to be there when it happens. You
But
know?
they're also forgetting, I mean, I feel the big crying shame this year is that they inducted one person in as a non-performer and forgot. They keep forgetting the same people year after year in non-performer. I mean, I brought up that John Peel not being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is nuts, but that's not even the start of what's wrong with that non-performer category.
Is Butch Vig?
Nope.
What
Neither-
is this?
Neither are a lot of. I blew Joey's mind by telling him that Rick Rubin wasn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh my God! What? I didn't even know that.
Russell Simmons is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame either.
Oh.
And neither is. I don't think George Martin is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame either.
Those are great producers. Those guys need to get in, man. They need to fix that because
But-
Vig and Rubin, those guys are.
Don Kirshner, who tried everything he could to stop the Monkees from having their own self-autonomy, is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Monkees aren't. I mean, that's not the end of. I have a whole rag on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Oh my God! But and
That
a
seems
lot
like
of.
that sounds like you could do like a 30-minute video like called "Who Isn't in the Hall of Fame."
Plenty of writers have done that. Plenty of writers have gone into what are problems with the Hall of Fame. Chris Molanphy did a really good article a couple of years ago about the right and the wrong way to complain about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or what artists should or shouldn't be in there, or what's wrong with the vote. There's so much wrong with that voting process. I mean, we're lucky that this year's nominees look as good as they do, and that's because of younger people like Questlove being involved in the nomination process. I guarantee you Janet Jackson would not have been nominated if Questlove was not involved in the nomination selection.
For sure.
Is there anybody who's looking forward to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction thing?
Well, I know they announced Kendrick's for sure going to do the speech, so I'm definitely curious to
The
listen to his
only
speech.
thing I'm interested in seeing from this thing is apparently Bunny Carlos might be rejoining Cheap Trick. There was this whole thing with Bunny not being a part of Cheap Trick anymore, and which is a shame because he's a major part of that band, and they're one of the best live bands we have. And, you know, I would love to see them back on stage together, but, I mean, I can't say I'm particularly thrilled about seeing Peter Cetera perform with Chicago again. I don't think anyone under, like, 45 cares about Peter Cetera.
I don't think anyone with any pigmentation in their skin cares about that at all either.
I think most people who are even aware that Peter Cetera exists know of him because Todd in the Shadows hates Peter Cetera.
Oh God, I hate that.
But yeah, so does anyone have any other last-minute thingamabobbles about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I just said I wish they'd keep getting it. I wish they would quit getting it wrong.
Yeah.
They have to do what the Oscars did and change the voter base every few years. Like
They should.
You're 100% right. That's what they should do, but they won't.
Huh.
My big thing that they should do is, I think what they should do is, like, induct 10 artists into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame each year. There is no reason that they should have, like, this set limit of 5 or 6 when they're not going to run out of bands anytime soon.
But
I
then
think
you're
it's
getting
more like-
people in.
A cleanup year or something designated for like stuff that they've left behind.
Like, a lot of doo-wop and a lot of progressive rock and a lot of jump.
Doo-wop is
blues.
hard. Doo-wop is so hard because it's, you have a couple of groups like the Five Satins that are great, or the Five Royales that are great, and they have like a consistent and deep discography, and then there's all these one-hit wonders. It's really hard to sort through them all, and it's like, I don't know.
And what about like New Orleans funk? And,
yeah.
Glam rock is missing a lot of people.
The Sweet need to get in.
I would put the New York Dolls in front of this.
Oh yeah, New York Dolls. Yeah, I keep forgetting that they're not in there. It's like
the first one.
They released
rock. I mean, why aren't the Sonics in the Rock and Roll Hall?
I love Here Are the Sonics. That's one of my favorite albums.
They just put out a really good album last year, original lineup.
I listened to it and I wasn't that into it, but it was nice to hear them again, though.
Impressive that they came back after 50 years and put out a good album. I mean, there's a lot of problems with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, starting with the fact that it seems like it's based on the opinions of a few, and then when they did that public vote thing, it seems like people put a lot more weight into that, even though it doesn't really matter, and they exclusively seem to shift towards white guitar bands from either England or America.
To be fair, we're all lobbying for a white English band from the 80s to get in the Smiths, so...
Actually, my number one Rock and Roll Hall of Fame snub is probably Fela Kuti.
Okay.
There are almost no artists from countries that aren't America, England, or Australia.
Africa needs to, they need to start inducting more African artists. Franco Tabule Rashiro, there's, African music was some of the best rock and roll of, the 70s and 80s.
I mean, if they want to go by pure sales, Prince Nico Mumbarka's Sweet Mother sold 14 million copies, and no one in America really knows that record. I mean, that's not for nothing. I mean, that's a great record.
Ladysmith Black Mambaza.
But Fela is probably the face of African music and should 100% be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know what they do for his induction other than play one of his 18-minute songs, but I mean, I'd rather spend 18 minutes listening to Fela Kuti's Zombie than I would listening to Deep Purple.
Or Chicago.
Definitely Chicago.
Or goddamn Chicago. I mean, at least I can dance to Fela Kuti.
Yeah.
And aside from that, there's a lot of Latino rock music that's missing. I mean, Los Lobos, who were nominated this year. I would love to see Soda Stereo. I know you guys know that I'm a massive fan of Soda Stereo, and they're a band that I wouldn't put them in front of Depeche Mode or In Excess, but in that whole kind of 80s new wave type stuff, you can't have that discussion of new wave alternative music without Soda Stereo being in there. Anyway, so we're probably gonna just for those who are watching us in the future, Joey and William are kind of out a little bit, so we're just trying to do a bit more stuff about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before Joey comes back. Does anyone have a personal an artist that has never been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that they would like to see in the Hall of Fame?
Eric B. and Rakim.
I'd have to see a list. I'm I can't really name the ones that I most want to see in there, but definitely some more 70s funk and R&B artists.
I gave you mine. I wanted the 80s punk and hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I want. It needs to happen. And then, of course, the Smiths. That would be good, too.
Yeah.
And the Replacements, definitely.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, too.
The Replacements got nominated the year that Nirvana went in. I worry that they may have split their vote. Because everyone wanted Nirvana in. Remember when Nirvana were up and Maura Johnson got a lot of grief on Twitter for not voting for Nirvana because she didn't think they needed her help? She was right.
That's ridiculous.
When
White
I
boy
mean-
rock fans.
I mean, how can you hate Nora Johnson? She's awesome. She's probably gonna listen to this later and be like, "Yay!" It's I also don't know whether or not rock critics deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because it's kind of that thing where should you induct someone who like if there was a film Hall of Fame, would you induct Roger Ebert?
You would not. Like, for a good example, that Lifetime Achievement Award Oscar, you don't give it to a critic. They never have, and I don't think they ever will. This is that same thing.
And the only people who will theorize about that are rock critics.
True. It's like, but in turn, the Baseball Hall of Fame inducts baseball journalists.
Yeah, but I think a lot of baseball and the hype of baseball during the height of its popularity from the 1900s all the way up to the 1960s was the people writing about it because radio and that sort of thing is very important. When it comes to visual medias like music or like movies, the critics are often they're just the people telling you if you should go see it or not. They're not actually involved in it. And when you look at the bylines for the awards, like the Hall of Fame or the Oscar, critics don't really fit into those boxes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ebert could get nominated in the Film Hall of Fame because he was a screenwriter, and there's lots of rock journalists who become musicians.
Neil Tennant of the Pet Shop Boys was a rock critic.
Yep, and Eric Kaplan.
To be fair, also, yeah, I mean, guys like Truffaut started as a critic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But would you also? But the other thing is that if the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted a rock critic, there would only be one, and it would be Lester Bangs. And I don't know whether or not Lester Bangs is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame over,
people who aren't transphobic.
or people who actually did stuff with music, like E.J. Coolhurt. Why is
Lester Bangs released some really good music in the 70s.
I mean...
Let It Blurt is an amazing song.
But, I mean, I'm really unsure of where they would go there.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Just that indecisiveness right there tells you the answer to your question.
Yeah. Joey, anything else you want to say about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Nah.
Yeah. I had that feeling. They kind of dropped the ball this year. I mean, just think there could be Chic could be like on the stage this year instead of Chicago.
Well, they need to keep rock critics' hopes up another year.
Anyway, for the one of the last things we're going to be talking about are albums that we're excited to hear about in 2016. Anyone would like to start about that?
I made like a short list. You want to go first, Matt? Go ahead.
Parquet Courts and Kanye West, of course.
Yes.
Kanye coming up this Thursday. That's gonna be.
Wait, is the 11th a Thursday?
I think so.
Well, all I heard is he's premiering the album at MSG on Friday, or wherever. Because I know he's doing season 3 too, like his clothing line. So he's doing a joint thing at MSG.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
You guys think I have a chance of being one of his 1,200 volunteers? I don't think we're going.
We don't even know what it's called yet.
It's called Waves.
No.
Change the name again.
Yeah.
Wait, I know he had a poll saying which album he liked better, or which album title he liked better.
He posted a poll, and also he said that he's not committed to the name yet.
Damn.
Watch it like when we put this out, he's committed to a name.
You know what's funny? I was listening to one of my the Breakfast Club radio show, and like they were having an interview with Max B, the guy who pretty much innovated the whole Waves movement, and he was like talking up like Kanye's like idea of calling it Waves, and like the day before he made a song over the prison phone where he disses Kanye in a wavy track.
But it's like
wavy.
he doesn't own the concept of like ocean waves. I don't think that Kanye named the album after that movement, but like after just waves.
No, I think he sort of did because he shouts out to Max B, and like the thing is, he calls it Waves and says it's like a shout out to him, but it's like he says the album's a gospel album, but
He has a legit gospel artist on it.
Yeah, he has Kirk Franklin.
Kirk Franklin. Oh my
So
God.
he's not fucking around when he
So,
says.
is it going to be like an entire album of Jesus Walks?
Yeah, I hope he gets Lecrae somewhere.
Is there
I
like
bet,
is there a point where I'm gonna need to like napkin my forehead?
is this the same album he was going to call his like Born in the USA, or is that like three albums he didn't want to do ago?
Bro.
I couldn't say, man.
Oh God, man.
What aside from Kanye, what other albums are you guys looking forward to?
PJ Harvey.
And,
Yeah.
and one that just me and Joey care about, Wussy.
Yeah. Let's see.
They're coming out with their album Forever Sounds, which
When is that?
it's March, and I hope they follow it with pet changes.
Yeah, I went ahead and did a list. If you guys want me to go ahead and go off that.
Sure.
I had Lush. They're doing a new album, which
That's
took them
right.
20 years. Yeah, Shoegaze. Yes.
I'm excited about that Lush album.
Yeah, it's good. It should be good. I have M. Ward. His album comes out next month.
Uh-huh.
I got Seosin with a return to Anthony Green coming back,
Mhm.
and then Brand New. That's gonna be.
Yeah. Brand New are touring with Modest Mouse, I think.
Yes, they are. Good luck getting a ticket.
And yeah, I tried to get to, because there's the thing of both Modest Mouse coming around, and this might be Brand New's last tour.
It is going to be. I saw them last year. Speaking of Anthony Green, they did a tour with Circus Survive last year, and they played the two singles. We were talking earlier about non-album singles. Mene's not going to be on the album. It's a single.
For me, I'm really excited about the new School of Seven Bells album that's going to be coming out.
Oh.
I'm really interested to see how that came together, and I loved all the singles that came off of it. I'm really excited. I'm hoping that Los Campesinos come out with a new album. I know that Los Campesinos are kind of my thing on the internet. I'm one of their massive, humongous super fans. But I mean, if you put out 5 consistently great albums over the course of their career, you kind of earn my respect. I love that band. I can't see what they do next.
It's funny you mentioned that because there are bands who put out 5 and 6 good albums that no one cares about.
Except for me.
Yeah, like that's what.
Wussy.
I mean, Los Campesinos kind of had like a song that everybody knew. That the song that was in the Budweiser ad, "You Me Dancing," and after that, people just kind of didn't give them the time of day, which is a shame because they've put out more good and more just quantity than any of their other artists that came out around them.
Mhm.
I mean, I could care less about the new Block Party album, but I definitely want to hear the new Los Campesinos.
I'm kind of excited for the Block Party album. I'll admit it. I mean, they've
heard
been pretty
the new
consistent.
album. It's bad.
Is it?
The thing with Block Party is that they were really reliant on that rhythm section, and that rhythm section is gone.
It's gone. Yeah, I mean that's.
They have some dude from Phenomena on bass, and it's not good.
Is that the issue there? That just the rhythm section isn't as congealed as it used to be? Is that
and also, Kayle's lyrics aren't as good as they were.
Yeah, because he's usually pretty on point with that stuff. And then I would also mention, it already came out, but I was really excited for the new Panic at the Disco. I live in Las Vegas. I'm always excited for new Panic at the Disco.
They're an interesting band. It's just Brendan Urie, right?
Yeah, he did all the studio stuff in himself, but he's playing with a band. And it's basically like he's playing with a super group of whoever the hell he could find.
Yeah, Panic at the Disco are a band that TYF is always on top of. We always write about their new music videos or their new album or the new singles without fail.
He's running around here somewhere. I'll find him. And the same thing with Brandon Flowers. He's running around here somewhere too, hiding underground somewhere.
I'm curious as to what Ryan Ross is doing because he
Me too. Yeah.
did a lot of really good stuff. Pretty Odd is probably Panic at the Disco's best record.
I still like the first album, but I think Pretty Odd's so different and interesting that it could be their best album. It's pretty good. Yeah. Vices and Virtues is good too.
Yeah. I mean, they're a band that kind of got lost in the critical discourse, but critics that are our age and a little bit older are a little bit more forgiving of them and other bands of their type.
Yeah, and I'll always forgive a band such as that band because when I was in high school, that's what I listened to. You know what I mean?
And I mean, those bands can, come back and put out a great album. I mean,
the Starting Line's doing that.
Critics loved that Paramore album, and they should have. That was
It's
a great album.
Great album.
I mean, who else was it? Then Fall Out Boy put out Fully Ado, which I still hear about all the time as one of the best albums of that era.
It's good. It's still not as good as the previous two before it, but it's good. And then also, another band that's doing that is Say Anything. Say Anything is always doing something interesting.
I did not like that new Say Anything album.
Really? I enjoyed it.
Where's that coming from? But I mean, I liked the last Say Anything album, but I didn't like this one because it was just so messy. It just came out.
Yeah, I think the problem with it is he wasn't as focused. He lost a lot of because a lot of the focus was on him and his problems mentally most of the time. And this time, I think he just tried to focus on way too many different aspects at the same exact time. And that's where that ended up,
Yeah. Anyone else have any other songs they want to talk about?
Is it hopeful? Does it make me a dreamer if I say Frank Ocean? I'm looking forward to.
Yes.
Hopefully it happens. Hopefully.
And then the other artist that people are really looking for is Rihanna already released Anti, so it's basically Frank.
Death Grips.
It's basically Frank and Radiohead are the two bands that people are like waiting for.
Right.
And Death Grips too.
Can I be the guy that says I get tired of Radiohead?
No, that's how a lot of people.
I just in Rainbows was just I just got tired of it.
Consider this. The last time that Radiohead put out a really good album, it was 9 years ago.
Oh my god.
For me, it was like 15 years ago, I think. Because OK Computer came out what? 2000.
I mean, I liked King of Limbs more than In Rainbows, actually.
In Rainbows, I did not like it. I was like, man, could they be any more up their own ass right now?
I love In Rainbows, but the thing with King of Limbs was that I liked all of the standalone songs they put around King of Limbs more than anything that came out on King of Limbs. And I liked Spectre more than any of those songs. So
Yeah, I just really like the more groove-based sound.
I like their songs that have guitars in them. that don't sound like 7-minute soundscapes. Any other albums you guys would like to highlight?
Well, besides Death Grips, no, because Death Grips is just interesting because they've said multiple times they're done, and then they put out like one last album and then say, oh yeah, it's a two-parter, even though it really isn't. And
They're
then
totally done.
they just released a new song today. Oh, and Missy, if Missy drops an album this year.
Ooh, Missy Elliott, yeah.
Did
I'm not a
you,
hip hop guy, but even I'm excited for a new Missy Elliott.
did you see
Although, I think Pitchfork put it this way when they were talking about their albums to get excited about, and she spent 3 months working on the puppets for her WTF music video.
Damn.
So it might be a while before she can craft something.
I mean,
I don't.
she put out a new song today.
Yes, she did. I haven't heard it yet.
Yo, I just got the message. I have it up, ready on iTunes.
Also, if Beyonce releases an album, did anyone see that yesterday?
Yes.
Yes!
I haven't heard it yet,
Shit!
but I'm curious because Mike Wilmeda produced it.
I'm freaking out about that song.
Is it great?
It's great.
Great. The music video is great.
I
It's
gotta look it up.
amazing.
I did not expect it to be that good because, like, I don't know. I don't have enough faith to think that an artist can put out that many great surprise releases. But she's proving herself. She's proving herself to be one of the best working artists. So.
Oh my god.
I was not a big fan of her Beyonce album.
It's one of my top 20 albums of this decade.
Yeah, but the subterfuge with which she released it was so dope.
Yeah.
And also, it was so many lines on it were so hashtag ready. It was crazy.
That's what
I
she
woke up
specializes
like-
in.
I think Drunken Love is the most atrocious song on that album.
It's so atrocious. It is. I listened to it and I'm like, obviously we know where she was going for this.
Yeah, Drunken Love is just
Drunken
like
Love is a little fucked up because like when
I like XO, but that's it.
to Mike Tyson and Ike Turner, I'm like, why did you do that?
Yeah. It's not great, but I do love the song in spite of that.
It's a good
But-
song, but it's like, damn, Jay.
Yeah, but yeah, I just remember being in a gender studies class, and these white gender studies majors were like, "Why would she let her husband say that?" And I was just like, like, why did she let her husband say that?
The point of it is you're talking about it even right now, and the album came out how long ago?
2000.
2 years
Two
and
and
a
a half
month.
years? Yeah, exactly. And you're still talking about that, you know?
Well, because
That's what's
didn't she
good.
bring back that trend of just like not saying a release date and just like dropping it?
Hmm.
I don't like
I
that.
mean, that's hard. The thing is, it was hard to pull off.
Yeah. Well,
I
didn't
like-
Radiohead do that?
I like surprise releases, but I don't know why they have to do it in December.
I like when they put 2016-ish.
It's like, hey, rock critics, your Paz and Jop ballots are due. Here's an album.
Here's like Black Messiah. That ruined a lot of people's.
But it made it to number 1.
Somehow, yeah. I also want to talk about that before we leave. Joey and Matt both submit ballot to the prestigious Village Voice Paz and Jop poll. How did the two of you think that poll came out this year?
Probably the worst single winner in the poll's history.
Hotline Bling, I agree. I thought it was a great song, but there's no way that was the best single of this year.
Yeah, it's just, it was, I mean, I suppose it was such a friend zone-y year in music that it was inevitable that a song like that would make it to number 1, but it's
Over
like,
Runaway like that?
but I mean, I think that, I mean, if you're gonna put a friend zone song in number 1, go with Carly Rae Jepsen's Your Type.
I think that The Weeknd could have made a claim for best single of the year, man. That guy.
I don't know. Critics hate The Weeknd.
I don't know why. I love the guy. I'm not a huge hip hop guy, but I love The Weeknd.
I like The Weeknd, but it's like I didn't like his album as much because it just felt like he's treading very familiar territories and not really expanding his craft. That's
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
hey man. I was saying this about Usher. What I like about Usher is like he improves on every album and he shows like different range, and I've always liked that. I hope The Weeknd facilitates himself to be something like that, and don't let the success get to his head with that Oscar nomination.
Just for reference, you guys,
Which he's not going to win anyway. But
Nah, but I mean, hey,
Oscar nominee.
The Weeknd.
just for reference, you guys, the Paz and Jop singles were, one was Hotline Bling with 76 mentions, 2 was Kendrick Lamar's King Kunta with 70 mentions, 3 was The Weeknd's Can't Feel My Face with 69
I
mentions,
hate that song.
that's
Four-
not best.
4 was Kendrick Lamar's All Right with 66 mentions,
I'd
5
not
was
do that.
5 was Courtney Barnett's Pedestrian at Best with 53 mentions.
That's not even the best song on that album.
I like the
depressing,
Preston
right?
the best.
Yeah. 6 was Missy Elliott's WTF with 50 mentions. 7 was Fetty Wap's Trap Queen with 47 mentions.
My number 1.
Ready, boys.
8 was Mark
Represent that
Ronson. and
E-Town
Bruno-
like.
8 was Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars' Uptown Funk with 44, including a couple that were from 2014. Yep.
No one listened to me in 2014. I was like, this is one of the best songs of the year. Everyone listened to it. And then suddenly everyone's like, oh no, I'm not going to listen to that. Next year it goes to number 1. Suddenly
It's so
everybody
damn
voted
good.
for it.
It's so
And-
damn good.
9 was a tie with 42 mentions between Adele's Hello, which I'm shocked got that high,
I
and,
haven't heard Hello.
and Jamie XX's I Know There's Gonna Be Good Times.
That's a great song.
I voted for a different Jamie XX song. I voted for Gosh.
See, I would have voted for a different Courtney Barnett song. I would have put Depreston on there.
Yeah.
I put Pedestrian at Best in my top 5. I think that was the most single-y song on the album at the very least.
Yeah,
know-
did you get...
You know, if I got a ballot, the number 11 song on the list, which was Carly Rae Jepsen's Run Away With Me with 41 mentions, would have gotten a 3-way tie for 9.
I'm sorry. What?
I'm a massive Carly Rae Jepsen fan. That would have been my number 1 pick.
Oh my God.
I just listened to Kiss yesterday.
I
I met that one guy.
No,
I
like Emotion. I'll be frank. It's a good album.
yeah, Carly Rae Jepsen
Oh,
actually was hugely acclaimed last year. Made it to number 3 in the album poll.
Yep. A lot of critics loved that album.
Yeah.
It is the It is my favorite album of the year. It is one of the best albums I've heard in the past 5 years. I mean,
Damn.
it is tremendous.
Really?
It is a great pop album.
Man, my favorite albums were not even those. So mine were. That's the Spirit and what was the new Florence and the Machine album? That thing was dope.
I haven't heard it
How
yet.
Big, How Blue, How Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great album, man.
I like
I
Ship
mean-
to Wreck.
Mm.
Ship to Wreck is a great intro track. Woo!
I was all about the epic this year.
But yeah, I'm looking through the Paz and Jop list, and there's a couple songs on here that I expect to be #1 over Hotline Bling. I thought either All Right or
See, I thought All Right would have been higher than King Kunta because that video and music and song
I
had
voted
more
for King,
weight and power to it.
I voted for King Kunta for the same reason I voted for Pedestrian at Best. It just seemed like the song that stuck out as an individual song the most.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm trying to not vote for album tracks as often as I did my first couple years voting. So.
All Right seems to fit so well into the album that it's
Mhm.
not mutually exclusive.
Although it was a highlight before it was released as a single for me. Like I
Yeah.
remember listening to the album and just being like, wow, this song sticks out a lot. And every song in that album is amazing, but that one really stuck out to me. And then when I found out he was releasing it as a single, it was just good choice.
That just speaks to the quality of the album. That the album got 12 Grammy noms, and you thought that it stuck out on that album because literally like, every single song could have been in the album. You know, could have been album of the year or whatever.
all
Record
right.
of the year.
I have Matt and Joey's Paz and Jop polls up, and they make a lot of sense. You guys both gave the max 30 points to Pimp a Butterfly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever given 30 points to anything.
I didn't think I would ever.
And you guys both had Donnie Trumpet's Sunday Candy on your singles list.
Oh, that song's amazing.
Yeah. And yeah, so anyway, before we finish up, I wanted to bring up what we were going to talk with Joey before his feed cut out, like he was on like a NASA spaceship gone haywire. I was talking about your post that you made on Rob Tenenbaum's Facebook page about how like the list of artists that you'd be sad about when they died.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about the construction of that list for those of us who aren't friends with famous author Rob Tenenbaum on Facebook?
Well, I just went through a bunch of artists who had released albums from the 50s to like maybe the earliest 70s, and then I was like, which of these people are about 65 years or older?
Can you go through that list a bit?
What?
Can you go through that list a bit?
Yeah, I need to get to it. 1 second.
Sure. I might edit this out with Audacity. Yay me. Yeah.
Alright. So, like, you have some people like Chuck Berry and Little Richard who are, it's surprising to realize that Chuck Berry is still kicking. That's crazy.
And still performing too.
Yeah, I think Bob Dylan is gonna be just gigantic, especially because he's still putting out good new music, which nobody expects that of him.
And really weird commercials.
Maybe he'll do another Super Bowl commercial today.
Were there any artists that you put lower for any reasons?
Most of the time it was just because people don't know them as well. Robbie Robertson isn't that recognizable of a name, even though he's huge. I put oh, I see you're walking me into this one. Jimmy Page is gonna be controversial.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If you want to go more into that, you know more than I do.
Oh, I'm not gonna mention the awful things that Jimmy Page did in the '70s in a podcast for theyoungfolks.com. They can just go through his Wikipedia page. There's plenty there about the basically the crimes that Jimmy Page did. And you also have like The name that stuck out to me the most was John Prine he put on.
Yeah.
Do you
I think
that?
it's a big deal. I think you're underestimating like people who are big in country and sort of altish country even. John Prine is.
You think
I don't
that
know.
people will be sadder about his death than say Richard Thompson or Ian Anderson or?
I never said that. I'm talking about like.
Oh, the Swan.
I'm talking about like impact at large on how many people like feel it.
One thing I was surprised was that you put Loretta Lynn and Dolly Parton lower than Willie Nelson.
Oh yeah, what?
People are going to go nuts about Willie Nelson.
But he's another one who's like, he's very old. He's like close to Chuck Berry.
People are
He's the
surprised
stoner of
he's
all
still
time.
alive.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, he looks very young for his age, but
If you had told me that Willie Nelson was still alive, I would have said bullshit.
it's all the weed.
I mean, and is there anyone on that like? Of the people that you put on the list, how many of them do you think will be like David Bowie, where like your local news will lead off in his death?
Is Brian Wilson on your list?
Mm-hmm.
I slipped him on. That's why there are 2 number 11s and I didn't fix it.
Because that would be a one for me, like Brian Wilson.
I will cry when Brian Wilson dies.
The biggest ones will be Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, Bruce Springsteen, Joni
Mitchell.
Yep.
Yeah.
Aretha Franklin, Paul Simon, Ringo, obviously.
Our Garfunkel.
Oh, I forgot him, but not as
Are
big.
people
as
going to be sad? Like, I mean, did you read that interview he did last year or the year before?
No, I didn't.
That was terrible.
It was? Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Like, this interview was halfway through.
But all right, so that's
Just one thing I'd like to note. Some of the weird ones that it's like, oh, I didn't realize that person still existed on the same planet as me. Like, Sly Stone is still a human being.
You're kidding.
What is he doing?
I don't know. He's hiding under a rock somewhere.
the
or
last
something.
time I heard he was like living in a van.
Oh my God! Down by the river.
Someone needs to make a biopic about him. Like,
Well, yeah, they did James Brown. They're doing Miles Davis. Why the hell not?
yeah, it's like his story is just so sad, and like he's one of my favorite songwriters of all time, and it's just a tragedy it ended so early.
Yeah.
I mean, the records that he released after Family Affair are so strange and kind of inessential that
They're so weird.
I love Fresh, the album. I think that album's pretty great from beginning to end, but after that, it all dropped off.
all the stuff he did with George Clinton, that was kind of disappointing for what you'd expect an album with George Clinton and Sly Stone to be. But yeah, I was really like taken about it because it was like kind of morbid and kind of weird, but it's stuff that we're gonna have to think about now because all those like really important rock artists are getting up there.
Isn't Iggy Pop like 100 years old?
And now we keep seeing rock artists dying, and you're like, oh man, that was a big wave, and then it keeps happening now.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't I was not expecting Bowie. I wasn't expecting Paul Kantner of the Jefferson Airplane. I wasn't expecting Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire died like this week.
Because that would be one for me. Would be Iggy Pop.
He's putting out an album right now with Josh Homme.
Yeah.
Williams in Las Vegas, which is the town of Panic at the Disco, and Brandon Flowers. I'm in Ypsilanti, Michigan, which is the town of the Stooges.
And I'm in Newport, Rhode Island, which has only put out like what the Throwing Muses, who immediately left for Boston, and the Cowsills. But
Hey,
yeah.
Hey, you could also say that Vegas is the town of the Rat Pack. So.
True.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, are there any final thoughts from you guys about either Bowie or any of the artists that we've lost, or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Just that I'm really excited to see you release those blurbs that we were writing because I think
They'll be coming eventually. I just have to get through those.
I think that some of those came out pretty good. I think.
I just have to get through like 10 machines. So.
Oh, okay. Hey, do you want me to do that? I can do that.
Maybe. I mean, I'm probably gonna do all the '90s albums and all of his late and mid '60s songs that sound like he's trying to be a bunch of people that he really shouldn't be doing.
Just tell me what you have left, and I'll see what I can get off of there.
Yeah.
That way you can
Alright.
get it finished.
Anyone else have any final words for this podcast before we go?
Not terribly much.
Nope.
All right.
Kanye hype.
Kanye.
Oh, one last thing from everybody. One last thing from everybody that I want. Who's gonna win? Best album: To Pimp a Butterfly or 1989?
I would love to Pimp a Butterfly. This was a giant argument with me and randos on Twitter over my predictions. Thing. I would love to Pimp a Butterfly to win Album of the Year. Would love to Pimp a Butterfly to win an Album of the Year. But it's not going to happen. It's going to be 1989.
Maybe.
I mean, you have, with Grammy Album of the Year, you have to pick, okay, what album is going to be most liked by a bunch of 70-year-old white men? And it's going to be 1989.
Well, when she won for Fearless, I thought she was one of the more, like, off-putting, like, nominees at that time. So, like, I feel like there's a love for Taylor Swift, but, like, after being nominated, like, countless times for Album of the Year, they really need to give it to somebody different. And I think they're going to try and expand on their initial elections, like the year they gave Daft Punk the award. I think they're going to give it to Kendrick.
Yeah.
And I mean, To Pimp a Butterfly's influences are also a bit older than Taylor's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it is possible that they'll listen to it and be like, oh, this reminds me of Funkadelic, so...
They just kind of have an adverse affection to albums that have the F word in them.
To piggyback off Matt's point, though, I think that the best album for a 70-year-old white man is arguably the one put out by a 20-year-old black man. And I think that I think that To Pimp a Butterfly is going to win, but I'm not going to lie. I enjoy 1989. I love Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I love 1989.
1989 is it hasn't grown well for me.
Really?
I like style, and I like
Style. Yeah, Style is just a dope track, and Blank Space is great.
Yeah, like, I love the music of Style. The lyrics are off-putting to me, but...
Can I say
I'm
something?
just excited for Girl Crush to win Song of the Year.
Don't. That's the songwriting
Oh, I
award.
love Girl Crush.
I don't like Girl Crush.
I love it. It's got this, like, that old country sound. It's very somber, and I like songs that sneak progressive material onto the radio, even if the subtext isn't exactly progressive.
It's so clumsy about it.
It's so fumbling. It's like they're fumbling in the dark with what they wanted to do there, and it just didn't happen.
And
Kevin wanted to say something.
I mean, I've seen, like, critics from the LGBT community who responded really well to the song. And I think that what the song does is it plays it safe, but also not. I don't know. It's very sneaky, I would call it.
Yeah, but
it's like sneaky in the opposite way you'd expect.
Against Me did something similar, but they just beat you over the head with it, and it was well done.
That was a favorite
Yeah,
album.
but Against Me didn't get a hit single though.
They don't need that album.
Well, that's the thing I'm saying. Sneaking it onto the radio is the tricky thing.
We're probably going to do another podcast on the Grammy Awards, but just in general with Album of the Year, I am surprised that the kind of alternative R&B record they chose was Beauty Behind the Madness Up by the Weeknd instead of D'Angelo.
I like the Weeknd album better. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's kind of more of a Grammy record. I'm surprised that the Hamilton soundtrack didn't get nominated for Album of the Year.
I think it should have.
That's fair. Yeah, I think that should have.
But yeah,
performing at least, so that's gonna be awesome.
We'll go a bit more into the Grammys in a future podcast where we go through all of those awards, including, the alternative album, country, and best spoken word comedy album.
Okay.
You'll have fun. But all right, thank you guys so much for joining us for the second TYF Music Podcast. This is one of the first TYF podcasts I've gotten to episode 2, so yay us! All right, we will see you sometime this month when we go through the Grammys. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a good evening and a pleasant tomorrow. Bye. Yep.